Welcome back, everyone. I am so excited that you're with us on 33 Founders today because I'm here with Scott Crabtree, the founder and chief happiness officer at Happy Brain Science. Thank you so much for being with me today.
I'm so excited to be with you, Jenna. Thanks for having me.
Scott, I have to start out with explaining why I reached out to you because I read your piece in First Round Review, and as I just shared with you, I found myself thinking about your insights every day, and I knew I have to meet Scott and I have to know, what is this about rewiring your brain? Is it true? Can you introduce us to your work in that light?
Absolutely, thank you. And what you said is why I get up in the morning, to make a difference in people's lives. So, long scientific story short, we can rewire our brains with virtually everything we think and do. We didn't believe this was true a few decades ago. We thought essentially you're born with a gazillion brain cells, they set like concrete by the time you're an adult, you lose neurons throughout your lifetime, and then you die. So suck it up, right? And the story from science is much better now. Yes, some of that's true, but we also add neurons to our brains throughout our lifetime. And you can see physical changes in brain structures on a brain scan in under a month if you do something repeatedly and intensely enough. So the way I put this in workshops is, that's just the way I am as a cop-out. That's the way you are so far. That's just the way she is a cop-out. That's the way she is so far. And big personality changes don't come with a snap of the fingers, but if we work, we can rewire our brains to be different brains, and I try to help people rewire to have happier brains.
That's what got me most excited, that insight that you shared, because I think oftentimes we think, oh, this is just my personality, I'm not good at this, this, and this. And that's not the case. We can change. And now you've dedicated yourself to going into organizations and promoting that and empowering people. What's the highlight been since you started this?
Wow, I have had honestly so many highlights. I feel so blessed. I would have to say that one of the highlights for sure was getting the chance to go to DreamWorks Animation and deliver Science of Happiness and other sessions to them. It was such an honor and a delight to get to work with such a great company.
As you work with organizations, you can work with a CEO directly, or like you said, you can give a huge presentation to DreamWorks. What's the first thing that you tell them? Because you're big on focusing on the individual, not every single person at once.
Yes, I can help people apply the science of happiness at both an organizational level and an individual level. I typically start with the individual level because I think happiness is very much like oxygen on airplanes. If you really want to be helpful to somebody else, help yourself first. If you're miserable and you're trying to help other people be happy, it's bound to fail. If you learn to make yourself happy, you're in a much better position to institutionalize some of the things you can do to boost happiness at work. So if I'm working one-on-one with somebody, it's an executive coaching situation. And in coaching, it's a good coach will, as coaches put it, lead from behind. That is, you're trying to help the person reach their goals, but it's all about the client's goals. And so sometimes I'm helping clients with goal setting, sometimes I'm helping them with happiness, sometimes I'm helping them with procrastination or prioritization. I go where the client wants to go. If I'm giving a workshop, I start essentially by saying happiness is possible, happiness comes with lots of benefits, and a significant portion of your happiness is coming from what scientists call intentional activity, the choices, the things you choose to think and do. And so I work on helping people make better choices that lead to more happiness at work.
One of the things that really stands out to me about your work as well is that the sustainable way to happiness is to enjoy the process.
Yes. Yeah, there are occasional critiques of some of these happiness interventions where scientists will tell other scientists, yeah, but we're not seeing a big change 6 months after you did this intervention. Well, I don't think you see a big change in the health of your teeth from brushing your teeth once and then waiting 6 months. right? The effects of brushing your teeth don't last very long, but we still do it at least once a day, and our dentists hope 2 or 3 times a day. Some of the interventions that the science of happiness suggests are long lasting, and some of them are short lifts in emotion, and then inevitably we return to a happiness set point we seem to have. Even if all something does is lift your mood for a couple of hours, boy, that's great. I'll do that every few hours if I can, because life's too short to be unhappy at work.
When it comes to the effect of those types of things, something that really stayed with me is when you discuss gratitude. Let's say you keep a gratitude journal for 30 days, which I've done, and it really does make a huge difference. You do that, that's actually going to affect you for months to come.
It will. Yeah, because in that month, you'll rewire your brain to be a more grateful brain. That's the trick, is to do something repeatedly and intensely enough that you're starting to rewire your brain to think in a more grateful way. This is easier said than done because of a couple of things. One is what scientists call hedonic adaptation. That's a fancy scientist way of saying you get used to anything you have in your life. The thing we get used to the fastest, it seems, are our circumstances. So there are, of course, exceptions to this, but for most of us, most of the time, our life circumstances, whether we're sitting in San Diego or Portland, whether we're driving a Saab or a Subaru, whether we're getting chicken or fish for lunch, all of our life circumstances don't add up to that much effect on our happiness because we get used to everything we have. So if you did gratitude the same way every day, you would adapt to that and it would stop making as much difference for you. So the trick is to develop a habit that rewires your brain and then find variation in the ways you express that gratitude, the things you're grateful for, sometimes writing it, sometimes saying it, sometimes tweeting it, sometimes thinking it to yourself, etc. Does that help?
Yeah, it helps hugely, and you share a couple of simple ways that you can do that in your organization. One is to make the first or last call or email of the day a positive thank you. And I love that you said it doesn't have to be a 6-paragraph email, like thank you for working with me for 5 years. It's just a simple way to say, hey, thank you so much.
Yeah, the beautiful thing about so much of what the science of happiness tells us is that so many of these interventions, as they call them, are win-win. That is, if I write you a thank you note for having me on your show, you will likely experience a mood boost, but I definitely will. Frankly, my mood boost will be bigger than yours if I write you a thank you note. So a lot of what we do, and certainly gratitude, is win-win. For the recipient, I think it helps a lot if you make the gratitude specific. So I think most of us in our careers have had a very vague thank you that didn't mean much to us. I know I've been in a room with a bunch of people where a leader says, thank you all, you're all doing such a great job. And to be honest, I think, you don't know who I am and what my job is. So that praise really doesn't mean that much to me. But if you can thank someone for specific behavior, tell them the emotional impact and the business impact, then you're really getting somewhere. So for example, Jenna, thank you for having me on today. First of all, I'm honored and delighted to be here. Second of all, to be totally honest, I haven't had the happiest day so far, in part because I've been a little socially isolated. So it's great to sit and talk with someone for a little while. And not only does it help me feel better, but you're going to help me spread the science of happiness to the world, which is my mission in life. So thank you. That's a really nice detailed thank you, right? What's the behavior, what's the emotional impact, what's the business impact? And you're really getting somewhere with your gratitude, I think.
I love that you shared that in that way. First off, because honor is mine. I'm like buzzing with excitement right now. But the second one, so you have on the Happy Brain Science site appreciation cards, which are simple things that you can do just that.
Yeah, we're really excited about this because there are some things that you can do that really cost an organization nothing or almost nothing. And those appreciation cards are one of them. We put them up on happybrainscience.com. They're free to download the electronic template. You can easily print a page and start passing out appreciation cards, and those guide you to use that specific recipe for gratitude. It's good for your own mood. It's good for the recipient because, according to surveys, most of us don't get as much appreciation as we want at work. And it's good for relationships. And science tells us that for most of us, most of the time, the quality of our relationships is probably the biggest impact on our happiness.
That was huge for me, learning that from you. And I think it lends to that gratitude of extending it to those individuals who have made a difference. Finn Barnes over at First Round just shared a great post where he encouraged people to cultivate your own confidence. A great way is to give credit to those around you.
What a great idea. Yeah, I have seen so many well-respected, successful leaders in my career do just that. And it's amazing to watch when you see somebody, credit comes to them and they immediately say, let me give this credit to these people, or let me at least share this credit with these people. It's wonderful. You are inspired by a leader who does that. A leader who is quick to take responsibility for mistakes on themselves, give credit to success for others. You want to follow that person, right? Leadership is about people wanting to follow you. And when you see somebody do that, you're like, wow, that guy is awesome. He just gave me credit for this project that he had a lot to do with as well. He took the blame for this mistake, even though I, in all honesty, was responsible for that as well. And I think Finn Barnes is exactly right. Great way to build your confidence is to praise others, because that's what a really secure, confident person would do. One of the many things that science can tell us is that sometimes in some situations, acting as if you are a certain way helps you start to be that way. We've seen this with the most popular TED Talk in the world, at least it was for a while, Amy Cuddy's superhero posing TED Talk, right? If I just act happier or more confident, I'll actually feel more confident and happier. And we see that kind of research show up again and again in various studies. So I think Finn is in all likelihood right on the money, as he usually is. If you want to be a more confident person, act like a more confident person. And confident people give credit to those around them and build relationships and happiness in the process.
Something that's important for all of us, and then leaders especially, to really internalize about that is that we have mirror neurons. So as you shared, if you start jumping up and down, I might not start jumping up and down, but I'm going to get pretty excited because I'm going to want to know.
Yeah, and according to the research, what happens is if you see me jumping up and down and throwing my fists in the air, you have neurons fire in your brain that would fire if you were doing what I'm doing. Now, if you were jumping and throwing your fists in the air, countless neurons would be firing in your brain to make that happen. If you see me do it, a few of those neurons fire in your brain. Those are the mirror neurons. They're the physiological foundation for empathy and learning, and they make, among other things, happiness contagious. So it is literally contagious. Research from Dr. James Fowler, UC San Diego, is tremendous and shows happiness and unhappiness spreading through social networks. So a key message in any workshop I give around the science of happiness is, if you want to get some happiness at work, give some happiness at work. Make some people around you happy, and that happiness will literally come back to you through mirror neurons. It's an awesome win-win.
I love that, and as much as I don't want to shift gears to talk about unhappiness, I do want to talk about soothing stress, which you speak about often. First, yeah. I'd love to touch on, this is a little selfish of me, but thinking in a rut, because sometimes something small will happen, and like you said, I will analyze it until I'm paralyzed, and the burnt dinner has now escalated to be like no one's going to eat for the next year.
Yes, I have been there, and a lot of us struggle with this. And I am not a psychologist, but what psychologists say is when we're ruminating over and over and over on something, why did this happen? Why did this happen? Why did this happen? Oh, I blew it. Part of that is an attempt to control something we can't control. We wish we could do something about it. The only thing we can do is think about it, so we just start thinking. And the research suggests those who do lots of that thinking in loops and thinking in ruts end up unhappy. It's not a very happy thing to do. Those who break out of those thinking ruts tend to be happier. The book that introduced me to the science of happiness and just lit me up inside with excitement was The How of Happiness by Sonia Lyubomirsky. When I finished that book, I thought, wow, solid peer-reviewed science on what makes us happy, and happiness brings lots of benefits. I want to be this, I want to do this, I want to share this. In that book, she has great suggestions for multiple techniques for stopping that thinking in ruts.
The one that you've shared is the 4-6-8 breath. Can you
Yeah.
explain that?
Absolutely, and even better, we can do it together, and hopefully people watching will do it together with us. So it's very simple. We're going to breathe in as much as humanly possible for a count of 4, hold it for a count of 6, and breathe out for a count of 8. This doesn't have to be, but it can be a mindful breath, and if it's a mindful breath, it brings even more benefits. For those who are unaware of mindfulness, a simple definition of mindfulness is simply being completely aware of the present moment without judgment. So our goal for this 4-6-8 breath is, if it's helpful to you, close your eyes and just feel the breath in your body, wherever you feel it, nose, throat, chest, belly, wherever you feel your breath, just stick with the feeling of your breath. And if you're human, your thoughts are likely to wander at some point. Am I doing this right? And that's when you want to not beat yourself up, but just gently return your attention to your breath. So let's do it together. Here comes the 4-6-8 breath. I'm going to close my eyes, and here's in for 4 as much as you can. Go. Hold it. And out for 8. And then you can open your eyes and just breathe normally. But what you have to do, because you emptied your lungs completely of air by breathing out longer than you breathed in, you have to take a big deep breath to fill your lungs with air again. And now we're breathing more slowly and possibly more mindfully. And so slowing your breathing down relaxes your body, and I believe that this effect works in multiple directions. So breathing slowly helps calm us down, but breathing slowly also tells us that it must be a pretty relaxed, safe time. Because if you and I were on a hike and we saw a mountain lion in the hills, we would not be breathing slowly and deeply. We'd be like, right? So when you breathe slowly and deeply, it's a signal to your body and brain that all must be well because you're breathing deeply and slowly. It's sort of the breathing equivalent of the power pose. So slow breathing actually calms you down and also tells you it must be a safe, calm time when you can relax more because you're breathing slowly, so it's okay to relax. Mindfulness just adds a whole wealth of additional benefits on top of that. And I don't want to mislead people. The science says it typically takes about 8 minutes of mindfulness or meditation to get a full deep relaxation response. But especially if you meditate or are mindful at other times, you can do that 4-6-8 breath discreetly in a meeting and get a bit of mindfulness and connect to that. And look, a big deep breath is not going to make a world of difference if someone's screaming in your face, being unpleasant, right? But it could be the difference between, wow, I really don't know the answer. I don't know what to say. I'm kind of freaking out here. And wait a minute, I can think this through. I have been in situations like this. I know what to say next. So I love the 4-6-8 breath because if you do it the way you and I do, it's very obvious. But I could do it in a meeting without closing my eyes, probably without anyone noticing.
And that's, like you just said, it's the difference between responding to someone and reacting to what they've said.
So eloquently put and so important, Jenna. I mean, as human beings, we are wired to react, not think and respond, but react. Our limbic brains, the middle of our brains that very roughly look like the brains of all other mammals on the planet, are wired to respond with a fight or flight response. We respond with fight, flight, or the default, although you hear about it less, is actually freeze. Because freezing, if you shut up and stay still, the mountain lion might not see you, you might get away. And that fight or flight response is very fast, much faster than our calm, logical prefrontal cortex that I refer to as our inner CEO. The prefrontal cortex needs a second or two to come online and be able to think and respond. And our limbic brain can just react. You're attacking me in my meeting, and I'm going to immediately fight back. That second of mindfulness or breathing can give our inner CEOs a chance to come online and respond instead of just reacting like an animal.
When it comes to the difference of those two, one of the things that comes up that you've shared is that we're better off when we focus on the things that we can control.
Absolutely. Easier said than done, though, right? For some of us, we tend to ruminate on the things we can't control precisely because we can't control them. Me too. Like, I didn't get into the science of happiness because I'm constantly blissed out all the time. I got into the science of happiness because I thought, wow, I could use some of this, and I know a lot of other people in the working world who could use this as well. So it is certainly easier said than done.
You were at Intel when you really got into this and you wanted to practice it with your team. So you thought, hey, let's start every meeting on a positive note and give out compliments to people or say positive things that happen. So the first one, everyone's kind of like, okay, Scott, like, what's happening here?
The first one resulted in horrible awkwardness, to be honest with you. I was like, hey, I've come across this research about positive comments. I didn't explain all this, but I was like, hey, I want to start meetings with recognition, simple shout outs of positivity to each other, gratitude, whatever. So, anybody got any? And if I could make a cricket sound right now, I would. It was awkward silence. But I stuck with it. And to be honest, I ended up sort of berating my team with the science of happiness as they did not come in with recognitions and gratitude for a few weeks in a row. I said, look, here's this peer-reviewed scientific research that says positive relationships, positive emotions boost brain function. You think more creatively, you're more resilient, you're more energetic, you're more engaged. Happier people make more money because they're more successful. So for the sake of your own darn wallet, come in next week with some genuine gratitude if you've got it. And you might try writing it down in between our staff meetings so that it's easier for you to remember on the spot. And once we got to about week 4, it was awesome. We'd start staff meetings, or even better, on week 8 or 9, I forgot. And one of my colleagues said, hey, what about recognitions? I was like, oh, yes, now we're getting somewhere. And really from the 4th or 5th meeting on, it was great. I'd start a staff meeting, I'd say, recognitions, anybody? It's like, yes. Omar wants to thank Paul for helping him debug. He was stuck on a nasty bug. They did some pair programming together and fixed it. It was awesome. And Ryan wants to thank Julie for helping tighten up his blog post. He had the basic structure there, but she really cleaned up a few sentences. And Steve wants to thank Stefan for staying late and helping out even though it wasn't his project. You get 3, 4, 5 positive comments at a beginning of a meeting, and the data suggests that people's moods lift, and therefore their brains work better. They take in more information, they think more creatively, and they have more resources for the meeting and for afterwards by improving relationships with each other. So starting a meeting with positive comments can have a lasting effect on the meeting and people after the meeting.
When it comes to the time after the meeting as well, another thing you did when you were at Intel was you guys gave presentations with 10 slides, and each slide didn't have anything to do with work. So for you, maybe it was, hey, this is my daughter. This is something I'm passionate about. Why is that important?
Again, it's down to relationships. Daniel Gilbert at Harvard says if you had to boil all the science of happiness down to one word, that word might be social. Now, it's much more complex to that, and it's impossible to boil the science of happiness down to one word, but his comment indicates how important relationships are. For most of us, most of the time, and again, science is averages, and somebody listening to this is not an average, they're an individual. So it may not be true for everyone, but for most of us, most of the time, the biggest factor in our happiness is the quality of our relationships with other people. And so investing in relationships is a great way to boost happiness. The slideshows that you're referring to are called Pechakucha presentations. The funny name comes out of Japan. It's simply a presentation format that started in the Japanese design and architecture community. 20 slides, 20 seconds each, only images on the slides. It's a way of getting people to quickly share visual information. So at Intel, we adapted that in typical nerdy Intel fashion. We cut the number of slides and the duration per slide in half, so we have 10 slides, 10 seconds each. And then we made a rule that for the sake of our team building, you could not show anything about your career. It had to be about you as a person outside of work. And what I found is that it was the high-speed lane to building teamwork and trust. In my entire career, I've never seen anything work better than these quick personal slideshows to build trust and teamwork in a team. So startups constantly adding people, right? Or hopefully adding people, and certainly have new people coming together. And critical to the success of those companies is how well are those people going to work together. And yes, we need to know each other professionally, but that stuff you get exposed to regularly. If you work with someone, you know how they write or edit or code or design. What you don't know is that they love small dogs and have 3 small dogs at home, or that they went to Cornell and you know friends who went to Cornell and they know them, or that they love cooking on the weekends. These things sometimes don't come up in the crazy, frenetic, busy world we're in. So these Pechacuchas presentations, the way we use them, 10 slides, 10 seconds each, it's under 2 minutes, but because a picture is worth 1,000 words, they're just amazing for building relationships and connections. It's like in under 2 minutes, I could see pictures of your grandparents. I could see your childhood home. I could see you playing softball or figure skating and learn so much about you so quickly in a way that makes those personal connections much easier afterwards. So again, we have lots of free tools on happybrainscience.com. One of them is a Pechacucha template and instructions. So if anyone wants to try this, I highly recommend. You can download a PowerPoint template we have, just drag and drop pictures in, and you're ready to share these with each other. And in my experience, it consistently makes a positive difference in relationships and therefore happiness.
Scott, as you discuss that presentation, we talk about soothing stress and gratitude and mindfulness. I think so much of our society has become, I don't have time for that. I don't have time to meditate. Look at my to-do list. Where do you think I'm going to fit that in? Can you make the case for why we should make time?
Oh, absolutely. Do you want me to make the case for meditation in particular, or happiness interventions in general?
Oh, that's a good. I don't know how to. I think I'm going to go for happiness interventions.
Okay, so I do get that pretty frequently, actually. I'm too busy for this. And if I get that reaction from someone, I tend to ask them a lot of questions that start with the word why. You know, why are you too busy? Because I'm working so much. Why are you working so much? Because I want to be successful. Why do you want to be successful? Because I want to make money and be able to travel and take care of my family. Why do you want to be able to travel and take care of your family? So that I can be happy. Yeah. Most of what you do in life is ultimately to make yourself or somebody else happy. For the first time in human history, we have not just opinion, not just philosophy, but hard experimental data on what actually works to make us happy. Why not take the direct route to happiness instead of the indirect route, chasing things that we think are going to make us happy, and science says don't make that much difference. So money is a fantastic example. Most of us think more money is going to make us much happier. And the data is money makes a big difference if you're very poor. If you cannot afford food and shelter and healthcare, for example, more money makes a big difference in your well-being and your happiness. But once your basic needs are met, additional money doesn't seem to make much difference in our happiness. And recent data has suggested that for most of us in the United States, once you're making 70 grand a year, additional money might help you feel more proud. You might drive home a little like, hey, I'm making 100.
Look at my car.
But it won't actually make much difference in your happiness. But a lot of us do a lot of the things we do to get more money. Why? Because we think it's going to make us happier. Let's pursue things that actually make us happier, like better relationships, more mindfulness, physical exercise, soothing stress, etc. So when people say, I don't have time for happiness, I ask them what they do have time for, and most of what they're doing is ultimately, if you keep asking why, to become happy.